Welcome again as I share some more experience with you and my journey towards becoming a pastry chef, from coming from nothing, coming from a family that doesn't have any baking background in it, coming from the deep of the deep, a young man with growing with a single mother that most of the time couldn't really afford much. And for this one, I'm going to talk about some of the struggles. In my previous video I talked about when I was working at the Cameron, that hotel. And that hotel is a hotel that when I remember it, I remember struggles. I remember some of the struggles that I used to encounter. And some of those struggles are when I remember when working at that hotel, it was the first time I was living by myself, right? I was living in an apartment, and I had the responsibilities, pay the bills, and while doing all of that I was still working. But there were times when I work and when I look at what I get, there wasn't much I could do. And I remember I used to be absent from work, and most times when I was absent from work was because I could not find the money to go to work the next day, right? So that would cause me to be absent from work. It's not something that one will want to look at or say, but that was the case. I remember when I was working there, I used to walk to work, to and from. Anybody know Montego Bay? The Cameron is at the hip strip, or some say Bottom Road, but I will call it the hip strip. Once you're in Montego Bay, you can walk there. And so if rain is falling, I may not be able to go to work because I couldn't walk in the rain to go to work. But there are times when I just could not go to work because of financial reasons. And when I go to work, I used to work so hard, right? I still go to work and show up and try to push out, but in growing up, while I was still passionate about what I do, most times when I can recall feeling down was most time when it was payday. And when you look at what you're receiving versus the work that you do and put out, sometimes you really have to wonder. So sometimes it wouldn't be easy, and I always try to remain focused and still to be as steadfast as possibly can, and just keep on pressing and doing the work that I know and set out to do. But there are times when you really feel like you deserve more, because every day you suit up in this jacket and you're doing such good work, but at the end of the day, when you are supposed to see a different result, you're not really seeing it, and that would be discouraging to anyone. And so I will say this, that the pastry world and the pastry industry is, when you just start out at your initial stage, you may not be earning a whole lot. You're going to be working very hard, right? And it's going to be upon you to try and learn as much and get as much. But the best thing is to get enough experience as possible, right? And if you have a leader, a boss, or a supervisor that is willing to teach you, that is one of the number one thing you wanted. Because I remember there are times when I was in the industry where if you're working with some chef, there are some things that they will not teach you. So it's either you're going to have to hide and watch them or stay a long time, but you have some chef like that, right? So if you have a chef that is willing to teach, like myself, trust me, that is a big plus, and your career will boost. It will boost your career so fast and far in a very short manner of time, right? And so I want to say this to all the young, chefs out there. Just continue to learn as much and focus on who is teaching you what you really need to know. So while I was at the Cameron and things wasn't working out, when you get paid, you look at it and you say, why? This can't do nothing at all. This can't even fit the bills them. I remember I tried to find like a second job, right? And I was doing one of the second job I got was to work with a company that used to go and do some cleaning, right? In Sandals. And that company, I remember the first time I went with them and I look at the work that I had to do. And trust me, I went there 1 or 2 nights because I leave work from the Cameron, I think it was maybe like 10:30 thereabout. And this was a graveyard shift job. So I leave work 10:30 and I was supposed to start that job 11 o'clock. So they picked me up and bring me there and I was to work all the way until in the morning, like 8 a.m. I think 7 or 8 a.m. I think we ran over to about 8 a.m. And then I was to get enough rest to go to work again like 2 p.m. And that was very hard for me. Not only that, but because of the nature of the job, I was using a lot of acid and it spilled on me and it burned up my skin. And I said, boy, no man, it's not gonna work. But during those times, I am always a praying person. And I always said, God, I really want you to come through, And part of my whole career is surrounding throughout, being a prayerful person, right? Being a faith walker and having a strong belief in God. And I believe, and I will ascribe everything that I have, and I will ascribe even my skill to the Almighty, because it is He who allows this to become a gift, right? And not just a talent, right? And one day I will talk more on that, give versus the talent and what would make me so unique in this industry. And so when I was working there, I didn't go back to that job, right? Because I think it was too much and it was out of line with Pastry. And one of the things that I try my best to do is whatever I'm doing, I try to keep it in line of Pastry, right? I got a second job. I got another second job, and this was working at Kayaba now, right? And when I was working at Kayaba, I used to go in and make breads. I used to go in and mainly to make breads. So Kayaba used to be at the time was an EP hotel, and it was a very small hotel. So it was just one person that was doing the pastry there. So taking on the bread load was supposed to be too much for that person. And I went in and I start making up some breads. And when I go in, I see a big list of breads to do, right? Because they will pay me for the day, and they will take me on for maybe like 1 time for the week or 2 times for the week. At first it was about 3 times for the week until it becomes like about 1 time for the week. And they will pay me for that day, and they will give me a big list. I remember one day I got a list to do, and that list was so large, and to be honest, I don't know where to start from. And I remember I called my mother and I was telling her, because I was overwhelmed because I still had another job, my main job, and this was my second job. And I said to her, boy, the list I'm get, and just I explained to her. I just did need somebody to talk to. And in a very calm voice, she said to me, some situation is not to enjoy, but to endure. And I was there, and when she said that to me, it hit me very hard. And I had no choice but to just go back and just think about enduring, right? And everything that I do from that day, I always remember that line that she said to me. Some situation is not to enjoy, but to endure. And I just want to say this to anyone that is out there right now in the pastry industry, in the culinary world, that you're facing challenges at some point and you want to become better at what you do. You're passionate, right? And you follow the instructions and you are eager to learn and you take this serious for your career. Just remember this, and I will say it from a quote, and my mother said this, and I hold it on, and I hold on to it, and I'm passing it on. Some situations is not to enjoy, but to endure. Until next time, stay tuned as I share my journey, full journey, right? There are some real stuff, some real in-depth stuff that I'm going to go into. Maybe not now, but I really want to go into some real in-depth stuff, and I'm going to share it out to you. This is just a warm-up. This is just, the little by little, because I've worked at a lot of places. I've seen a whole lot, been through a whole lot, but I'm going to share it with you. So until next time, stay tuned. Remember to walk good, talk good, live good, laugh good. All the best.